I know quite a few of you have been requesting this matchup. We've got Chaos Dwarfs versus Order Dwarfs, and Drazoath the Ashen is going to be leading the way for my Chaos Dwarfs on foot here. He is quite cheap if you get him down and take him on foot. He's got decent enough stats, especially 65 melee defense makes him pretty tanky. I'm not too worried about him getting sniped. Versus the Dwarfs, also has anti-infantry at plus 20, so should trade well against non-large dwarf lords. We've got the two cheapest spells, Dark Subjugation and Burning Wrath, to get as many procs of Killing Fire as we can. The rest of the build here is obviously going to be a lot of armor piercing. We've got two Chaos Warrior Great Weapons, 5 Orc Laborers for that sweet cheap armor piercing, 4 Goblin Laborers for some more meat shields, some more AP in the form of 2 regular Bull Centaur Renders, and we've also got the Hashut's Dark Ravagers. I figured the throwing attacks and their anti-infantry bonus could be quite useful here. We've also got, 3 Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders scattered around and 2 Sneaky Gits on the flanks, specifically to move in, try and get on some Slayers. My opponent here, Shadow 2000, is he's got a couple of Slayers, 2 Giant Slayers on the flanks, 3 Cannons, which is why I've gone for a rush build rather than try and outshoot the Dwarfs. Definitely would have punished me very hard if I had tried to go for a shooting style build, I think. 3 Quarrelers as well, great AP, missile block chance, just overall very cost effective. 160 range 2 means they can outrange Chaos Dwarfs quite heavily. He's got some Iron Breakers there in the center, Dwarf Warriors, and Miners with blasting charges up front. So let's get things rolling. Belegar Iron Hammer leading the way, it should be said, which is a total Chad pick, 100%. And obviously Thorek is the meta, and I would pretty much always advise taking Thorek even still. But yeah, let's get things underway. I'm going to kind of maneuver my Hobgoblin Raiders around the flanks here and try and pull these Slayers out of position. There's only 2 Slayers. I've got 3 Cavalry, so I figure I can try and create some gaps here. My opponent is going to move his Iron Breakers to kind of help screen this backline, which is actually pretty threatening. But look at this, the Sneaky Gits already throwing their daggers here, moving in on the Slayers. Don't expect the Sneaky Gits to win this fight, especially because of their low HP. But as long as they can trade cost effectively with the Slayers, I'm pretty happy with that. And right now, throwing these daggers, they've already chewed a lot of HP and models off the flank here. Now going to be moving in. You can see the Wolf Raiders then come for a nice collapse alongside the Bull Centaur Renders cresting up and over this tiny hill here. And the Bull Centaur is also a quick hit and run charge in the front just to kind of break up the Miners' charges so that my Laborers don't just eat them directly in the face. And although Laborers are certainly meant to play catch with their heads, it's not necessarily ideal to just lose them outright, especially the Orc Laborers could run away pretty quickly if I'm not careful, so managed to disrupt the Miners pretty well and mostly keep them from getting their charges off. Ooh, this one though, the Iron Breakers in the back line just blast this unit of Wolf Raiders that are trying to find the gaps here to get through and get onto the artillery. And mostly able to do so. Sneaky Gits on the far side still haven't quite moved in yet, but yeah, at this point, the Hashut's Dark Ravagers, oh, I get a little tongue-tied there. Everything else moving in. We've got a full melee line engagement. That melee defense debuff, the Dark Subjugation, is a spell I think people have kind of been overlooking a little bit on Chaos Dwarfs. It's a really nice, cheap debuff. Leadership and melee defense. The melee defense in particular, especially when you've got like these Orc Laborers who don't have the best attack. They've got okay attack, but you can debuff those Dwarf Warriors. Melee defense, they'll have a much better chance to hit, and in that great amount of numbers, should be able to connect to kind of get my Hashut's Ravagers caught up on these Giant Slayers momentarily. They're going to take some damage and have to retreat, but the Sneaky Gits are here to support once again. That poison anti-infantry should be trading very cost effectively. Although, as you can see there, yeah, I mean, again, don't expect them to necessarily win out on that fight, but Dwarfs are holding for the time being. Belegar manages to find Drazoath in the front line there. I'm going to throw the melee defense debuff on him, but even still, Drazoath gets distracted fighting just like some Dwarf Warriors and whatnot. Let's watch his animations, actually, as Belegar drops his attack order, unfortunately. He uses this torch to very good effect. Looks like a little handheld flamethrower. It's very cool. But I'm not really down to take this engagement straight up against Belagar. He's definitely a better combatant overall than Drazoath, so I'm going to go ahead and scoot Ashy Drazi on out of there. Likewise, I've pulled back Hashit's Ravagers to throw their axes. No need to fight those Giant Slayers in melee, and so far I really haven't touched the Iron Breakers, which is a little bit concerning. Did manage to clean up most of my opponent's missile units here, but let's keep it relatively close in cinematics. Oof. Nasty volley of charges gets thrown and absolutely explodes a huge blob of the laborers. But they are just laborers after all at the end of the day, so not the best value, but still, considering these Iron Breakers are getting attacked by laborers and bull centaurs and everything else, they are holding out quite nicely. Drazoath there continuing to just try and run from Belagar, but yeah, the throwing axes of Hashit's Ravagers, they hit very hard. They are definitely kind of similar to Shabti Greatbow shots in that they appear to be almost like artillery in a way. Like you'll see they kind of have this little explosion when they hit the ground, right? So you can definitely tell they are very impactful shooting attacks. Not particularly accurate, but if they do hit, a lot of damage here to these Iron Breakers. Yeah, the Orc Laborers and the regular Bull Centaur renders too, doing okay, but Magic Missile there, does okay. It's kind of like a little Magic Missile AoE deal. It's alright. Considering how cheap of a spell it is to cast, it's okay. I think probably Fireball is a little bit more efficient, but yeah, at this point, unfortunately, Belagar, not Balcor, not able to catch Drazoath, and I've been able to mostly just grind down my opponent's build by bogging down the Slayers and whatnot, thrown all the axes, the Ravagers now, done sufficient damage to the Iron Breakers to break them. And this build ended up working out very well. Obviously, if the Dwarfs were expecting this kind of a rush build, they could probably build more so to counter it. Obviously, the heavy investment in artillery here didn't pay off, but at the same time, I don't disagree with it necessarily. I mean, like out-trading like a magma cannon with 3 dwarf cannons, or, you know, just in general trying to artillery trade from the Dwarfs into the Chaos Dwarfs seems like a good idea on paper, so I don't totally hate it. And if I had brought a missile-oriented build, I think my opponent would have punished me pretty hard for that. But I was very conscious of that, and having seen some stuff in and around this matchup, figured this would just be the best way to go, is for a full-on, all-out rush, and it ends up working out basically pretty much exactly how I planned on paper, which is nice. I mean, obviously, takes some losses, but yeah, the sneaky gets into the Slayers on the side, supporting Bull Centaurs with a little bit of extra light cavalry. Feels really strong. Orc Laborers also are going to be crazy cost-effective in this matchup. Low leadership does make them vulnerable to getting blasted by blasting charges, but since Order Dwarfs don't have anything to chase your units off, even if they do get routed a couple times, still be able to come in and contribute, you know, towards the later stages of the battle, hopefully. But, yeah, from my opponent's side here, the Iron Breakers are a pretty nice pick. I honestly think maybe more of them. Maybe some regular Slayers as well. Like, yeah, maybe go 2 cannons with an extra Slayer. I'm not really sure. Have to sit down and really kind of theory craft out this matchup. I don't totally hate his build, but again, just wasn't necessarily prepared for the rush, it seems like. But, yeah, Drazoath doesn't do a ton of damage in and of himself, mostly just here for support. Really, the Hashit Stark Ravagers are the best performers here. They definitely seem like they're going to be a strong pick in this matchup. If you can keep them from getting shot up too much, certainly a high-value target for shooting. But yeah, both the Sneaky Gets, very happy with their performance against those Giant Slayers, it must be said. Both of which we were able to limit, not paying for themselves. Yeah, the Correlers do okay, but again, it's kind of tough for them to pay for themselves when they're getting just overwhelmed by all those numbers. It's definitely an interesting one. And obviously, Thorax is going to be a better pick than Belagar pretty much 9 times out of 10. Definitely respect not just necessarily going straight for that pick, but it's definitely a fun one. Thanks to Shadow2000 for the games. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.